Hi, this is Jarrod. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button if you like this content. And if you would like to support my channel, I'm going to be covering my annual Triple Crown full card soon. So if you head over to the runawayhorse.com, click on my sales page. My Kentucky Derby full card will be available in a few weeks. Now, in the last 22 Triple Crown races, I've given out 9 winning trifectas and 5 winning superfectas. And in that Triple Crown full card for Churchill Downs for the Kentucky Derby, you're going to get a lot of analysis of each horse, all the prep race recaps, a lot of information in there, bloodlines information, post position analysis, just so much more, wagering strategies for all the races, including trifectas, superfectas, pick 3, pick 4, pick 5 wagers for those full cards, pick 6 as well. It's going to be available Derby, Preakness, and Belmont Week at the runawayhorse.com on my sales page. So check those out. Keep supporting my channel, and good luck at the races. This is Jarrod Horak for the runawayhorse.com, and I'm back with my second Kentucky Derby qualifier video. In my first video, I took a look at horses that qualified through the Louisiana Derby and the Bluegrass Stakes. And in this video, I'll look at qualifiers from the Wood Memorial and the Jeff Ruby Stakes. Now, if you're interested in my annual Kentucky Derby full card from Churchill Downs, that will be available Kentucky Derby week at therunawayhorse.com on my sales page. I will be covering all the Triple Crown full cards like I do every year from Churchill Downs, Pimlico for the Preakness, Belmont Park for the Belmont Stakes, and they'll be available each of the weeks that those races are run this spring. Now, you can pre-purchase my Kentucky Derby full card right now if you're interested. I have some of the analysis done, but I have to wait for the post positions to come out before I finish with wagering strategies and other information that I'm going to be adding. But there's a PDF file right now. If you purchase, I'll send that out with all the information that I have so far for the Kentucky Derby. And then as soon as they draw the post positions, I'll finish my wagering strategies, and I'll send out a second PDF for any purchasers for that. And then for the rest of the full card for the Kentucky Derby day at Churchill Downs, I'll have that done Kentucky Derby week. Again, after all the post positions are drawn, I'll do all the other races. I'll do the Derby first and get that out, and then I'll do all the other races and send that information out to buyers. So go over to the runawayhorse.com on my sales page if you're interested in any of that. Now, in this video, I'm going to cover I covered 5 horses in my last video. But I did mention that Pioneer of Medina, who was 3rd in the Louisiana Derby, he currently sits number 21 on the Kentucky Derby points list. 20 horses can run in the Derby, and if he gets 1 defection, he will be able to get in. But the other horses I mentioned in that last video, they're all safely in with enough points to run in the Derby. Now for this one, I'm going to cover the Wood Memorial first, and the first horse I'm going to talk about is the horse that won the Wood Memorial. And he's a horse that's been on my Kentucky Derby list since I started my list last year, and that is Mo Donegal. He's been lingering in my top 5 since last year. He's always been in my top 5. I really like this horse. It's just a question of pace for him, and then what kind of trip he can get from off the pace. Second time out, they stretched him out at a mile and a 16th at Belmont. He looked good winning there as a 2-year-old. His final start as a 2-year-old was in the Remsen Stakes, and that has turned into a productive race. You kind of figured it would be because the top 2 really ran well and they separated themselves from the rest. And in that Remsen, at a mile and an 1/8, it was a slow early, fast late event, and it was dominated by Mo Donegal and Zandon. And they were more than 10 lengths clear of the show finisher. So they went slow early, fast late. Zandon was positioned in front of Mo Donegal, but Mo Donegal was always within striking range, tracking the pace, no more than 2 lengths back. Those two hooked up in the stretch, and they just battled the length of the stretch, and Mo Donegal got his nose down to just defeat Zandon. And then in his first start this year in the Holy Bull Stakes, a mile and a 16th at Gulfstream Park, that just wasn't a good distance for him. The Gulfstream speed favoring surface wasn't the kind of surface that he typically would excel over, but he ran a good race. He rallied from 6th place. He finished 3rd. He was only a head behind Simplification for the runner-up spot. So he was finishing best of all that day. And then they entered him in the Fountain of Youth Stakes. But in that race, he drew an outer post. And then he came down with a fever, and they just scratched him. They were probably going to scratch him even if he didn't have the fever because they didn't like the post position draw that day. And they were always pointing to the Wood Memorial. So that was going to be the race that he was going to be running in. And he really ran well that day. In the Wood Memorial, he has my top choice at a mile and an 1/8 from post 1. He was sitting at the back of the pack, but he's had a good closing trip, though. From that inside post, he was able to save ground under Joel Rosario and really set a great closing trip. And he was able to catch Early Voting, who was out there controlling the pace. And he's a quality horse as well. Early Voting had won a points race earlier this year at Aqueduct. So Mo Donegal ran him down, earned a strong late pace rating. And the 1.25 mile distance of the Kentucky Derby is not an issue for this horse. It's just a question of what kind of trip, how much pace is he going to get in a 20-horse field. He'll be finishing for sure. It's just a question of how far back. As I mentioned when I talked about Zandon, the Bluegrass winner, you don't want to be way back. You don't want to be coming from 19th place in the Kentucky Derby. If you can rally from 10th or 11th, you may be able to get the job done, but you're not going to rally from far back and win. So it could be vital what kind of trip and what kind of pace scenario happens. But Mo Donegal certainly is capable of winning a race like the Kentucky Derby if everything falls his way. Now, Early Voting was second. He ran a good race for trainer Chad Brown. He's lightly raced, but he's one that's not 100% guaranteed to run in the Kentucky Derby. They're thinking maybe they don't want to go there. They may go and wait for the Preakness Stakes. Chad Brown's done this before. Cloud Computing did that. He had enough points to run in the Derby. They decided to skip the Derby, point to the Preakness. He ended up winning the Preakness Stakes. So we'll have to see if Early Voting goes here or they decide to wait. He's lightly raced. He would impact the pace if he got in. If they decide to run, he's in. If they decide to run, he would be a pace factor. Now, Morello, for trainer Steve Asmussen, he qualified for the Kentucky Derby when he won the Gotham Stakes. But the Gotham Stakes was a one-turn race, and we just weren't sure what he was going to be able to do when they stretched him out to 2 turns. And we really didn't get to learn anything because he had a bad start in the Wood Memorial, and he just wasn't able to run his race. Morello likes to get into a nice stalking rhythm like he did in his first 3 easy victories around 1 turn. And then when they stretched him out in the Wood Memorial, he was not able to garner that early position, and we never really learned a thing. He was 6th, beaten 21 lengths. Now, do they want to go to the Kentucky Derby after this bad effort? They're going to train him. They're going to see how he does. If he's doing well, they'll probably take a shot at it. We just don't know how far he wants to run at this point. He's a good sprinter. We know that. Up to 1 mile around 1 turn. We just don't know much more about him other than that. The Jeff Ruby Stakes, we had a couple horses qualify there, including the winner, Tiz the Bomb. Now, with Tiz the Bomb, his big thing, and he has a lot of Derby points. He earned 110 Derby points. Mo Donegal had 112. So these are some of the top qualifiers. Epicenter had 164 points. He earned the most of anyone. And then Zandon was second with 114. But 110 points for Tiz the Bomb. He really did well on the road to the Derby. The question with him is going to be the surface. He did win an off-the-turf maiden race at Ellis Park on a fast track last summer, and he won by 14 lengths. And then they moved him to turf. He won a couple stakes races, including the Grade 2 Bourbon Stakes. Then he was second in the Grade 1 Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf. And then they started him in the Holy Bull Stakes this year on dirt at Gulfstream Park, but he didn't really run. He was 7th, beaten 20 lengths there. No excuses, but that was a very productive race. And then they moved him to the all-weather surface at Turfway Park. He won a Kentucky Derby points race, the John Battaglia Memorial, and he rallied from 7th place to win that one. And then in the Jeff Ruby Stakes, Grade 3 at 1 1/8 last time at Turfway, he was within striking range throughout and sitting in mid-pack in a 12-horse field, and he won by more than 2 lengths. So he can run on anything. We saw his maiden win on dirt. He's a multiple stakes winner on turf and all-weather surface. But I think of the 3 surfaces that he has run on, conventional dirt is probably his weakest surface. So Tiz the Bomb's going to have to really step up his game on the main track. He has some talent, just don't know that he really wants to run on dirt. He's better on other surfaces. Now, Tawny Port was second in the Jeff Ruby Stakes, and they had enough points to qualify for the Kentucky Derby, but they decided they wanted to run him on dirt again. And so he came back 2 weeks later in the Grade 3 Lexington Stakes on April 16th, and he rallied from 8th place and rallied wide, and he won by a length there. So he's got more than enough points to qualify with 60 points for the Derby for trainer Brad Cox. Again, but it really is a question for him. He's going to have to run faster because his best speed rating was earned in the Jeff Ruby Stakes at 1 1/8 on all-weather ground. And even though he won the Lexington, his speed figure dropped off. So he's not as fast on dirt as some of these other horses. His other dirt start was in the Risen Star Stakes. That was a productive race. He was 5th, beaten 7 lengths in a 10-horse field. So I think the same thing applies to Tawny Port. Even though he is a stakes winner on dirt, he seems faster on all-weather ground. But he is getting better for trainer Brad Cox, and we'll see how he does in the Kentucky Derby. So that will wrap up my look at the horses that qualified through the Wood Memorial and the Jeff Ruby Stakes. And I looked at the Louisiana Derby and Bluegrass. And then in my next video, I'll take a look at horses that qualified through the Florida Derby and the Arkansas Derby. Until then, good luck at the races.